Test. Are we on?
Test. We are back. On. It's October 25th. The year. It's 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast, and this is episode 726.
Yeah, actually, it might be the 26th. I can't remember.
Well, yeah, you know what? We're doing it a day early. So it's for us. Sorry, I botched that one. But whatever. It's the 25th.
It's not
for
like
us.
you, man.
It's the 26th for you. You guys are ahead. We're a little bit behind. Thanks for tuning in today. It is a gloomy and dreary day here in Overland Park, Kansas. Yet, Training Peaks is open. Athletes are chirping. Rainbows are out. It is a great day. Happy to be here. Hope you're all having a great week. Quieter week. Not a lot going on here. End of October is a slower part of the year than you got November, where we finish off with Cozumel, Arizona. I think at Indian Wells, Florida. The full Ironman. Basically everyone's gearing up for Halloween. Which, as I told some other parents last week, because you know me, I'm not a Halloween guy. Just not. You're not going to see me dressing up. I'm going to be the chaperone and make sure everybody is taken care of. But here's what Halloween really is. It's a bunch of parents going out, dropping $100 on candy so we can swap it. That's it. We'll take our $100 worth of candy and we'll swap it with yours because here's the cycle of Halloween. We buy a bunch of candy. We put it on our front steps. You come out and you get it. And for your kids, all the kids come out. The candy's gone. Meanwhile, we're cruising around the neighborhood doing what? Picking up candy, right? We come back to the house. We got all our candy in hand, bag full, set it on the table. You find the good stuff, right? The Reese's, the Butterfinger. If there's a Fifth Avenue, then it gets a total game changer. The good stuff. You toss out the Junior Mints. You toss out the Rolos. You toss out, the black licorice, the jelly beans. Nobody wants that stuff. And then you just put it in your pantry. And then the kids ask for it every 30 seconds for the next month. Hey, can I have Halloween candy? Hey, can I have some candy? Can I have a treat? Can I have this? You're like, no. And then as the parent, depending on where you are and what you're going to do with your life, you're thinking, God, I wish I would get this candy out of my life because you got a bit of a free time. You're like, go and walk in the pantry for a healthy meal. And there is staring at you 19 Reese's peanut butter cups. And you're like, listen, it's here. The sooner I get rid of it, the sooner it's gone. And I can move on with my with my healthy eating. So you splurge on it, or you spend the next 2 weeks not eating candy and then you toss it out. So really, I would imagine of all the Halloween candy that's purchased, 35% of it is consumed. The kids get some. You don't want them having too much because they're going to be, hyped up on sugar. Heck, I told you yesterday, our school district has no school the day after Halloween because they don't want to deal with these kids hyped up on sugar. And then the rest of it's thrown out because the parents don't want to eat it. That's what Halloween is. We as parents, we just go out, we buy candy, and then we trade whatever candy is in our house for stuff we don't even really want. And there's better ways to do this. You should have a set list of your neighborhood of what candy is preferred. Don't go out buying this weak shit. Don't go buying candy nobody wants, right? None of the healthy stuff. Just Reese's, Butterfingers, Fifth Avenue, most popular neighborhood. And then guess what else? Guess what you get in return?
What?
Reese's, Butterfingers, Fifth Avenue. You don't give away the good stuff only to come back and you're like, why are we giving out these suckers that you used to get at the doctor's office back when you were 6? Nobody wants these. The occasional sour apple blow pop, that's fine. But we got to get this thing a little more streamlined if we're really going to, hit it the way it's supposed to be hit.
Wow.
I probably should look at our intro before I went in. Yeah. I put a lot of thought into this, man.
Yeah, you did. That's all good, man.
Yeah.
First of all, you got to plow through it. You got to get rid of it. I've been
you
there.
Do.
It's like, why did I buy 24 cookies instead of just 6 or 8 or whatever at the Quick Trip? And there's sitting in there, and some days you're just like, all right, I'm close. Let's just knock it down and get them out of here because I don't need them when I don't have them. That's the worst. So anyway, I don't know. Yeah, it's a gloomy day here too. I'm thinking about, it's like 55 degrees. I'm thinking about throwing a beach towel out and laying down in the clouds and just pondering my lost days as an AWA athlete.
Listen, there's always this next year. All you got to do is sign up, show up, and get some points. But yeah,
that's what I thought too. It's like I need to race more.
Yeah, that's right. Once a year ain't going to cut it. But for me and for everyone listening, you will forever and always be an all-world athlete in our hearts.
Yeah.
For me specifically, maybe not to me so much. Before we get into the topic today, since I did go on my Halloween rant, I think I might as well do a little bit of intro today. So if it's your first time tuning in today, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general terms of Bibles. We appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes doing the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and Training Peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also like to utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource. We go in there about every 3 to 5 weeks, do a bit of a Q&A, take the pulse of the community, answer as many questions and your burning desires as we possibly can. That is it. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. But we do have an agenda. And that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. And it seems to be going pretty well for most people.
Most people.
Yeah, I think so.
I will say, as I was kind of going through the intro, which again felt like I was, riding. It was kind of riding your bike with the intro there. We will be doing a Tuesday, next Tuesday's cast. I'm just going to go ahead and predict it's going to be all about swimming. We got a swim camp here in Overland Park. We got athletes coming to town, classroom presentation in the pool 4 to 5 times. So I'll be hyped up on all things swim. So you can fully expect a swim-driven, ranted podcast next week.
All right, it's in.
It's in. It's in the books. Everybody loves a good swim rant.
Yeah, you can tune in. Yeah, we'll talk about swimming. One of our favorite topics. Yours for sure. Mine is. It's probably right there. Actually.
Yeah, it's up there. You love talking about some
like
swimming.
A mystery.
In this time of year, one thing comes to mind.
What's that?
Well, not one thing comes to mind.
World Series.
We talk a lot about the technical stuff. Yes, we talk about my balls failures of second half. No,
it is World Series time, and I know I trashed things.
Is
a
that
lot,
on?
But yeah, it's set. The Rangers and the Diamondbacks. And let me just say real quick, I watched the game last night, and the Diamondbacks beat the Phillies. Sorry for my Phillies fans, but the cream always seems to rise to the top for me. The people that play the game the right way usually end up in the World Series, and the Diamondbacks they weren't home run guys or just like making shit happen out there, getting the job done, and they just scrapped their way all the way to the World Series. So I'm pretty stoked about that, actually. Nothing fancy. They're just playing ball.
The only thing I know about the Diamondbacks is when they used to have Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson, and way back in the day, right? When they had them at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Randy Johnson used to be my neighbor.
Didn't they win? Really?
Yeah.
Didn't they win the World Series on a walk-off? Can't remember the guy, but didn't they win on a walk-off?
I think so. Was that the bloody sock year? Or was
that was a bloody sock year.
Or was that for the Red? Was he on the Red Sox then?
Listen to me. Now that right. You know what he was with the Red Sox. Listen to me, someone knowing about baseball.
Yeah, you're all over it today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's triathlon-related podcast.
Exactly. We got Halloween candy, and we got baseball. No, but we do dive deep in the physical aspects of training when it comes to performance, when it comes to racing, when it comes to how you train, swim, bike, and run. And then we also, especially if you're not your first time tuning in, we dabble a lot in the mental and emotional piece in the space of triathlon and what it takes to be an endurance athlete and the demands of and how to get the most out of yourself. Because, I think a lot of, I think most other podcasts are either based on interviews with pros, which frankly, I can't relate to at all because my life is totally different from theirs, or it's about, specific training and listening to something that, but unlocking your potential, in my opinion, is almost all chin up. Because in order to get the work out of yourself that needs to be done to unleash the physical aspect, right, of a chin down, you got to unleash the piece of it that is the chin up. And that's believing in yourself, having confidence, working through things, and I think we are all conditioned one way or the other to start. And then life experience dictates that we, become harder, quote unquote harder, right? We can be more resilient. We grow through things. We have obstacles. And then some people don't, and they find that, their bad day is that they, ran out of creamer, at the office, and that's like ruins their day. And some of the people, you hear what their day is like, and you're like, how are you still standing? And it's all based on our own reality. And I always come back to, you and I talked a little bit about this before the podcast, just about, then even last week on Tuesday, about adding in resilient sessions, and how I think that's actually something that I know we will look more into as coaches for our athletes, but also as just a society, because everything is becoming easier, right? Or everything is geared and sold as easier, right? You don't have to leave your house anymore. You can work from home. Your kid can go to school from home. You don't have to drive anywhere. You can have everything delivered, groceries delivered. You don't have to go anywhere, right? We got conditioned this way in 2020 and 2021 to just sit inside and, be afraid or not afraid, but just be sedentary and be set in not doing anything. And then you look for easy ways. And everything in life, right, is done to make things easier. But in a lot of ways, it also has made things harder. I mean, how many of you, listening could read a map, right? Or go back and, like, I was thinking, like, back in the day when I was trying to explain to Hayden on the way to hockey yesterday, or him and his buddy were taking him to hockey last Friday, and they're like, "Yeah, can't you do this?" I was like, "Listen, no. Back when I was in high school, we had what was called a pager. We had to wear this little device in our hip. You had to go find a phone. You had to call somebody. You had to put your number back in. Then, depending on what kind of sport you played, you put in pound, and then the number symbol, and then your football number. And that's like how they knew who it was that was calling you. And then they call you back, and they got to go find the phone. It's like, things haven't always been this easy. Because, like, Hayden's thing right now is like, if there's any question, he's like, just look it up. You just look it up. And I'm like, it's not that easy. I think I said, like, remember a couple years ago, he's like, look up Tom Brady's phone number. He's like, just look it up. And I was like, it's like not that easy, right? He was on his big Tom Brady kick like 3 years ago. I'm not sure how I survived that period in my life, but everything is made to be easier. And we've talked about this a lot. I do think that our level of resilience has lowered. And I tend to think about this, and I've spoken about it honestly and openly on this podcast before, that, this time of year I kind of go through like a handful of emotions every year as it kind of leads to my sobriety date, because it also reminds me of what my life is like. So I guess to me, like, when the leaves start to change, it immediately starts to remind me of, like, when my life was just totally in the shitter. And I wasn't just at rock bottom. I was, like, beneath the rock bottom. Like, I had taken a jackhammer. I was like, I know this rock bottom seems low enough, but let me do some help here. Get out a jackhammer and let's go a little bit deeper. And that's how low my life was before I got sober in middle to end of November. And so I always kind of go through all these feelings and thoughts and emotions. And it's not a hard month because it's also celebratory, like thinking, then less than a month, I'll have 10 years of sobriety, which is just kind of crazy. For me, it also brings back, emotions of that period of time. But I've also, and I know I've spoken this before, is like, there are pieces of me when I look back to the times I was able to produce then, and I look at the pain that I was in daily, and I also look at how endurance sports, I think, kept me alive for most of it, but how I was able to dig a certain level of deep to match the level of pain that I was in. And, this isn't a podcast to advocate, getting to your rock bottom so you can perform better in triathlon, but it's more of just an open discussion about how sometimes, because I know I have athletes like this. I know you have, every coach can probably say you have athletes like this, that they don't get a lot of training in, but they've got some demons, they've got things working on, they're working through, and that life is hard. And when they show up to race, they just destroy things. And it's not so much physical performance, but it is how they're able to withstand pain, and that their interpretation of an obstacle, their interpretation of physical pain is no match for the life obstacles that they're going through, or the mental and emotional pain that they feel. And so when it comes to, and we're slowly conditioned to that, right? Especially depending on how difficult your life is. And that's how mine was leading up to getting sober. Even the first few years of being sober, my life was incredibly difficult. And I was able to make my way through. And now I do. I sometimes I think to myself and ask myself, like, I'm not going to say, have you gotten softer? Because I think I can confidently say I have gotten softer. Thankfully, because I would really like to not have to go through those things again in my life. But when it comes to racing and training, it does beg the question, like, is there a certain level of uncomfortability and obstacles in your life that lead to better performance? Or is there a way to unlock that? I guess is the better question. Discussion is, how do we unlock that same level of mental toughness and just the ability to go to the well in a race and go through that pain threshold? And just because I look back for me, like I look back at some of the things I was able to do, like even when I was, was drinking constantly in the race performances and like, how did I even do that? And I remember pain just felt like nothing, because from the chin down, it was incredibly painful. What I was dealing with in my head and my emotions were 10 times. It was almost like, cathartic. It was almost a relief. And so I think when we go to these races, you got races like California that were a little bit tougher, and you go, or old school Louisville, right? We talk about a lot how hot it was. Like, I loved that. And I think that there's a lot that we can explore within ourselves and challenge ourselves to do these things that make us kind of unlock, maybe not permanently, that we can do these things, that we can push through, and what being resilient really means. Because listen, no one wants to be resilient every day. No one, because that means life's pretty damn hard, right? There's a lot of things not going your way and you're just making it, right? You don't want to do that, but you need to know that you can be resilient. You need to know that you can go there. You need to know that you've got the stuff, right? Because we all know people who can dig really, really deep. We also know people whose lives are, perfect family, perfect jobs, picket fence. And when it comes to race day, they got nothing. One thing happens and they can't do it. There's always an excuse, always, because life is peaches and cream. So I think there's ways we can challenge ourselves. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure I've totally got the answer, right? Because if I did, I'd already done it. But I think what we talked about and about doing for our athletes, about a resilient session, each month to challenge yourself, or even to do something that is uncomfortable for you, right? That teaches us resilience, right? To do things we're not sure how they're going to go. Like Hayden, I'm going to shut up in a second, I swear.
Okay.
But like Hayden, they have these youth tryout for U8 for hockey. And basically they're only going to take the 9 best players from all the under 8 for the whole ice center. And he's only been playing for a year. He honestly has no business trying out for this team. And it's a travel team. They'll travel for tournaments. They'll play extra. He's good, but he is not. I don't think he's that good. And so we told him about it. And as a parent, you're kind of like, yeah, he loves hockey. He loves the sport. Ugh. Do you put him in that? Is he too young? Is he going to learn anything? Is he going to be too upset? So we just figured out, you know what? Let's just give him the choice. We told him, hey, man, there's a tryout for this team. You may not get picked. And I even said to him, I said, there's a high likelihood you might not make it, because they're only taking 9 kids, and there's a lot of great kids, at our ice center. You still want to try out? He said, I do. I want to try. It's all right. So he went out there, because in my opinion, and I kind of had this conversation with him, I said, because here's what we'll do. You try out, and no matter what happens, as long as you put forth your best effort, you'll know where you stand. And more importantly, you'll know what you need to work on. So you might not make the team, and that's okay, but at least you'll grow from it. You'll challenge yourself. You'll do something you're not really comfortable doing, and you'll learn what it is you need to work on. And so we went, we'll find out on Saturday whether you made it or not. But it's like doing things like that, for a kid, pushing yourself, not knowing you're not going to make the team. And maybe if your other friends make it, it'll be disappointing. But finds ways like that, right? To maybe not show overnight you're resilient, right? By going for, like we always like to go for the big thing, right? I'm going to do some resilience. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to walk and hike for 36 hours. I'm going to do that. And like, no, that doesn't work out. But at least working your way up to it or finding ways to be your own level of resilience. Because if we're being honest, like I could, standing up and speaking in front of 1,000 people, that wouldn't bother me. Like I just, that wouldn't bother me at all. But there are other things that would bother me. Like that would make me uncomfortable. I think trying things out like that and making yourself more resilient is just a great way to unlock your overall potential, not just in training, but your overall potential in life.
A lot of it's about perspective. What you just said about Hayden going into it. I mean, I just think a lot of kids go through that experience without this concept of, like they always want to make it, they always want to do it. And then if they don't understand that this is going to be really hard and this is going to be something that might not work out for you, if you go into it kind of with that nothing to lose attitude a little bit, then I think it lands a lot softer, And you said something way back there in that discussion about, are you getting soft? And I think that's an interesting thing because I wonder if it's, are you getting soft or maybe content in the best sense of the word? It's like you realize, and it's like a sort of a realization that you don't have to always punish yourself, and you're okay with how things are going and you feel good about it. And I understand that deeply because I remember, sort of my analogy kind of with that, at the same time you were going through that, I was in a job that I just absolutely hated going to, and the reality is during that time, it wasn't easy, but I had to get up and go in, so just getting there actually was a success story for me in a weird way. So I hated every minute of it. I got up and I got it down where I could get ready for work in like 10 minutes and drive. And I'd sleep as long as I could and the whole 9 yards, and I get there. But it was torturous, but it certainly built this kind of same thing. Like you're saying, you could get up and go race, maybe halfway hungover and just kind of plow through it. And that's really what I was doing. I mean, if I worked at home then, the same job that I worked at home, who knows when I would have woken up, and it's just sort of like, I think a lot of times the analogy between actually going in there is kind of like the race. Some days you have no choice. It's race day. You got to go do it and everything. But a lot of times in training, we're kind of have the option, obviously, of not doing it if we don't want to. And, I've always been the kind of person that kind of understands, I think, that you have to do hard things. And I've talked about many different things that I've tried that, whether it's, when I started drumming, I was scared shitless of that every time I played with people. And I just kind of started picking it up on my own. The first time I ever played on stage, I still have gray hairs from that. It was so nerve wracking, man. And I can still feel that, like, that uncomfortable thing with, people looking on, and I just was sucking it up. But I got through it, and I actually, kept pushing. But yeah, we did that back then, man. I think, we'd go out all night and then just kind of get up and go rip it, man. And it did. It was almost like, it is that thing. It's kind of like, if a kid plays video games all day for 10 hours, they just sort of acclimate to it and it's numbness. But if you tried to make me play a video game after like a half hour, I couldn't even go through it because it would be too painful. It's sort of like seeking dopamine, or we were more seeking more pain just to feel shit in our lives. So there is something to it, but I think understanding and, like for me, I push resilience in my training when I'm ready for it. Like if I feel really good, I might just have a certain normal day or whatever. And we talked about before, if you feel really good, stretch it out, see what happens. Try it. And, because I think if you push on a bad day just to feel it, it's sort of that same, loop that you were in or I was in back in the day. It's sort of like just punishment more than kind of finding your limits and really trying to test your abilities. If you're feeling good out on a run and it's maybe a 30-minute run and you want to go after it a little bit for 30 more minutes or 40, whatever, that's the time to do it. But I think you have to do it. I just think it's better when you're feeling good and that you're feeling strong and you can handle it, you can find those edges and just stretch your abilities and, dig into that well a little bit, like California. I've got a lot of people telling me about that race and how difficult it was and how conditions sucked and all that kind of stuff like that. And I always just say, you're lucky, because those are the good memories. The torture and the difficulties out there make for the memory. If it was and nobody can take that away. It's just I've been through about, I don't know, Louisville was one, that heat day. I'm proud of those races in a different way. They weren't my best times, but just knowing that you can get through that and what you went through to get to the finish line, there's an appreciation there that it just lands a little bit different for me. And, because a time is a time, but like that struggle on that day and the opportunity to go out there and test my limits on those types of days, with people around cheering for you to get through. It's like I was saying before, it's kind of a safer place to go see how deep you can dig and dark. And, you got people supporting you along the way. So I don't know. I'm getting to more and more appreciate the challenge of it than the actual going out and I have to do certain times.
Well, I mean, I think that's like what you just said. I think what every athlete needs to unlock. What is it I'm really trying to gain? And yes, do you want to perform well? Well, sure, everyone does. Everyone wants to see, right, their hard work, their perseverance, their commitment, their effort, their training, their coaching. Everyone wants to see it come to fruition, right? But objectively, we also have to understand that, some days it's just not always going to pan out. Right. But I think the great thing about triathlon, though, is that there's usually it's such a complex puzzle. You at least at some point find, hopefully, right, if you're an objective, you're actually enjoying this sport, you can be objective and find one or a few clusters of pieces that did fit well together and other ones that need some work. Right. And on even more of a positive side, maybe it's a group of puzzle pieces, right, that you've never put together before. Other races you've gotten, it's been pretty simple and straightforward, and you got the whole border of the puzzle, done. Or, it's and then the next race you don't get the border all the way done, but you find a few pieces in the middle. So you're making progress, because if we're all being honest, like there's only one perfect race. That's it. One. Mine was Ironman Arizona freaking forever ago. 12 years ago. My day just went perfect. Everything was there. Physically, I was there. Mentally, I was there. Emotionally, I was there. Probably one of my better mental and emotional days from back when I was drinking, because I did make a 7 p.m. run to the liquor store and grab some red wine the night before. Not the best choice, but it still worked out for me on race day. But everything is winter. So
salmon.
Ever since then, I've been kind of like chasing it in the perfect day. But there is no perfect day. There's only one perfect workout, right? That's what we always talk about. Getting rid of expectations. So again, one of the best things about endurance sports is that there are so many things that can go right, but most people focus on what went wrong, and then they focus on what happened at the end. What was the time? Was it their best time? Was it what they expected? No race is super easy, whether you think it's going to be or not. Something always happens. And I think a great question to ask yourself is, when you, and it might sound morbid, but like when you die one day or at your funeral, and on your tombstone, are you going to have your fastest 70.3 time and your fastest Ironman time?
I might.
You might. You never know. You might. And if you're a grandparent, you're going to have you put your kids on your lap and you're sitting in the rocking chair out on your front porch. You're swinging back and forth. And Billy, back one day when I was 42, I went 11:38 in Ironman, Wisconsin. They're going to be like, what the hell? They're going to walk back inside and they're going to talk to their dad. They're going to say, Dad, Grandpa's losing his mind again. I don't have any idea what he's talking about. No one's going to give a shit. No, none of it matters, right? But the thing that'll last with you and your impression of what can last upon others is what you gain as an individual and a person, not just as an athlete, as from a performance standpoint. Is it making you more resilient? What do you learn about yourself? How do you grow? Like, that's the stuff that's why you do this stuff. And I think a lot of people just lose sight of that, because I think, listen, like a lot of times it's because they're reaching, right? They need this race to validate something. They need it to, be, really what they, it's something for them that they probably shouldn't be asking for. And I'm going to read quickly a message I got from an athlete that I only worked with for the swim this year. And this was the comment, the text that I got. Total anonymity, but I think it should ring true about being resilient and what you gain from it. And they said, "Hey, coach, I wanted to thank you and tell you how much I appreciate your help. I shaved off over 10 minutes on my swim. My day didn't turn out the way I hoped, but I'm proud of myself for not quitting. I popped my cap on mile 14.5. I tried stretching, walking it off, and ran again, and felt another pop, and I shut it down. It was the longest 11.7 miles of my life. Lots of emotions and appreciation to the sport and how much it helped me grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. On mile 22, I saw my wife and our kids, and I cried in their arms for a few minutes. Lots of pain, physical and emotional. My oldest kid looked up at me and said, 'Dad, I'm proud of you for not quitting.' And I told him the only way I would quit is if I had to be carried out on a stretcher. We both laughed. I gave my family one last hug, and I finished the race. Thank you again." I got chills reading that. And when you picture that moment, and if you can go back and listen to it again and picture that experience, that moment in time, not just for the athlete, but to the example they're setting for their kids and their spouse and just for life, what do you think is going to be the lasting memory? No injury, perfect race, and like a 7-minute PR. Kids aren't going to be talking about that. Not going to leave a lasting impression on that, and nor will it for him. Because they're just going to be right back to the typical triathlete, right? Yeah, I had a great race, at a 48-hour and 7-minute PR, but I really think I got a lot to still work on, coach. And you go right. You keep moving. Keep moving forward. On to the next thing. And when you have things like that happen, obviously that's like more of a stretch and a severe obstacle, but it's a perfect example of the perfect objectivity and perspective to have on why you're doing it in the first place. And that the truth of the matter is that you can't practice that all the way, right? Just like you shouldn't practice all the way the full distance of a race, right? Or doing a 112-mile bike and a 26-mile run brick. That's why you shouldn't even get close. You gotta do it one time. But you should figure out ways to challenge yourself to slowly build, just like we talked about slowly building, and minimal incremental increases like we talked about last week, taking things up just a few minutes, make them short, sweet, and attainable. From a physical standpoint, physiologically, that's what you do. There's no reason we shouldn't be doing that mentally and emotionally too. Don't try to be somebody you're not overnight, because then you're just going to find out you're probably just as weak as you thought because you haven't trained your mind. So find ways to train your mind. Make these little micro decisions each day, or put yourselves in situations that aren't super comfortable, and become more resilient. And again, this isn't going to be a top 10 ways to unlock your resiliency potential. That would be way too much, the fodder for Facebook and Instagram and Triathlete Magazine, because it's different for everyone. But to find ways to challenge yourself in any shape or any way or part of life, unlocks all the pieces. It just doesn't just unlock one, right? You do something really, really, really hard in the sport. You do something really, really hard in a race. It unlocks that piece and then takes you to a different level in your professional life. Same thing goes if you're able to do something professionally. It's really uncomfortable, and I found this courage to do it. Man, I just feel like $1,000,000. You'll remember that on race day. So we do. I think we have. We have. I say we, society. With the things that they produce and how things are marketed, and and just products in general. No one's out there to, it'd be a really bad business model to go out there and and try to find ways to make things harder, right? Because no one's going to buy it. It's always how to make things. I think it started out as 8-week abs, and isn't it down to like 3.5-minute abs? The workout. I think that's what it's down to. How little can we do, and how can we promise big results with a little bit of investment in time? Or you don't have to go here. We'll bring it right to you. You don't have to do this. We'll bring it right to you. You can do all of your training from the safety of your 8-by-8-foot square in your downstairs in your basement, and never go outside in the elements and wonder why race day is more challenging. There's all kinds of things we can do. And again, we don't ask them to be done daily. But I think we should all find ways to challenge ourselves periodically or weekly or monthly, but find something to challenge yourself and unlock that piece and gain confidence, because again, it won't be just transformative in training. It'll be transformative in life.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say you've referenced puzzles and maps. So I think this is going to be my mom's favorite podcast of all times. Because those are her two great loves in life.
That's right. I got you, Ann. In a minute, I'm going to talk about small entrepreneurial businesses that selling small crafts.
Yeah, I mean, she's on fire right now. I'm pulling out the map. But yeah, I mean, it is. It's that Tombstone reference, for example. I mean, is it about one race, or is it about the career? And I think that's how I've been looking at it. I mean, how many pro athletes do you? I think it's about the entirety of the work, the body of work, that why certain athletes go down in history, and it's not because they had one great year. I mean, it's just kind of like a one-hit wonder that's sitting out there. That's one of the things you watch, Sports Center, any of these things, if you still watch that stuff. But it's all about the right now and the highlights of, but they don't, I feel like the society doesn't put value on, longevity and things anymore. It's all about the highlight. And I think we have a tendency to fall into that trap. But I mean, over time, I've really learned to appreciate that I've been able to do this sport and continually do races year after year since getting into it. I think that to me has become slowly the thing that I'm most proud of. And I know I kind of referenced that this might be my 10th and last, but I have to admit, almost immediately after this year's race, I decided I wanted to race again next year. So not only
typical triathlete, I'm done, I'm retiring, I'm never doing it again.
Well, I mean, I didn't even say that after the race. I was kind of already like, I gotta go back. I learned a lot there I am. I was learning. What am I learning? It was a tough day, and I want to go rectify it or give it a shot. So, but it's just, it used to be so much about the podium for me that, I've had, and then you start with, I had a pretty good first Ironman, and then it becomes chasing a number instead of really doing what the long lasting value is, which is becoming stronger and living longer and feeling better in life. And that's become the thing. So it takes a while sometimes, I think, for people to recognize that it's not always about the time. And, you get done and you get to stand on the podium, and then everybody forgets, and it's like, shit, man, how am I going to beat that? I need more attention or whatever. And that's kind of where I was, but it really isn't about that. Now it's almost like turning in. We talked about that too before. Are you getting external or internal motivation? And internal motivation should always be centered on trying to feel better, feel stronger. Like I was saying the other day, is like, getting up and being able to do shit, and not deal with tons of pain as you get older. I mean, it's about feeling younger as you get older, which is my mantra. It doesn't always happen easily, but I still work at it and do whatever it takes to kind of try to move that direction all the time. And so I just think this is a great one. I think also doing hard things makes your life easier. And I think we need to face them a lot, frequently. go out and do those challenges. Like you said, I mean, it's like push yourself and then see where you're at. And I don't know. It's like, I think there's a tendency as we get older to be like, I'm not doing that. That's too hard or whatever. But I think that's when you should do it, is when you see something like that. I mean, obviously with not getting injured, but, just give it a shot. I mean, it like this weekend when I was hauling wood, man, it was kind of a wake up call in a good way. I didn't push myself over the limit, but it was like, all right, you've been letting some things slack here. And you just, like I always say, man, sooner or later in your life, your health is going to be the most important thing. And let's just put that off as long as possible. That's what I say.
Well, I mean, don't put off that mindset.
No.
Right. That's that your health is the number one, but
yeah, I think you can't get it back is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Trying to get it back. Yeah. It's
easy to take for granted,
It is. And everyone does it, because I think everyone loses perspective. And it really is. It's unfortunate. It's one of my least favorite things about society and about myself, right? That something bad can happen. You want to do all these things, and then the next thing happens. It's like, I wonder how many times the average person has changed their, Facebook background the last 3 years to something and some cause, and nothing has come of it. We all do that. Just an example. We all get moved, we all get touched, we all get impacted by things that happen in the planet and the world, and then we think about, ways we can change the world and change humanity and be better and do better. And then 48 hours passes and either the next thing happens in the world or life gets back a hold of us, and all we can do is focus on, what's right in front of us right now, because life is so demanding, and we let it fall by the wayside, and I think I'm first to admit I'm the same way. I think everybody is, to an extent. I think it's one of those things that when you talk about impacting things, the hardest thing to do is impact yourself. And that, in fact, directly impacts other people. Right. And so, again, like, this isn't like a lot of podcasts, like we don't give a lot of straight up answers. We give a lot of, or Seinfeld, take from it what you will, but find something. And I challenge everyone, we got a Facebook group. Well, this will go out on Thursday. Maybe we'll start a thread, and everyone can find and post the one thing they did in the last week where they challenge themselves to do something they're not very comfortable doing, and challenge yourself. And it could be anything, right? Because that's the thing about giving, not ultimatums, but, black and white answers, stuff like this, is everybody's got different levels of what they can handle at the moment. And everyone has different definitions of what pain and being uncomfortable really is, and then what it looks like. There are things that I'm sure that would make me incredibly nervous that would make you nervous at all, and vice versa, or skittish or doing this. And I think that's some of the best memories I have of just the last few years from training wise have been at camps, when I've found like just glimmers of that piece of me that was able to connect my mental and emotional effort and resilience to the physical part of me that was going through pain, and match it and look beyond it and get it done. And that was like a run camp, like last February, was one of those times. Like, it was one of those very few times in the last 4 or 5 years I feel like I was racing. And I was able to kind of unlock that, like push past that door of, man, this is really painful and this is not comfortable at all. And instead of just easing it, backing it down, I just kind of throttled it forward a little bit. And again, I remember exactly where I was too. I was running up that damn gravel hill, and I just found the gear and ran up the whole thing where I had walked some of it the previous 3 laps. And that you remember those things, and then it kind of helps stick with you. And you're like, yes, I do still have it. I just got to figure out how to unlock it maybe a little bit easier the next time I really need it. Or, look back and try to ask yourself, like, hey, like, what? I wonder what it was that made that happen, and how can I get that back? And again, that's why endurance sports are so awesome. because it always leaves us something to work on, into question, into ask. So that's why we keep coming back.
Yep. Yep. I mean, that just reminds me, we all have desires to make a huge impact or whatever, but it always boils down to, if we want to change the world, that always starts with one person, and that one person is always ourselves. That's how we have an impact, is by changing one person at a time.
I love it. And hopefully at some point, listen, if the resilience part didn't touch you or make an impact on you, I sure as hell hope my Halloween rant did, and the world be a better place. Fifth Avenue's, Reese's, and Butterfingers for life. But no,
are you out on Snickers?
I mean,
I know. I know. Coke and a Snickers is the recovery drink combo.
That's the thing, right? Like, there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah.
Just like when you're leaving, back in the day, my grandparents would, take us out to like what back then was like a fancy restaurant, like O'Charlie's. Back in the day, you're walking out and you pick up one of those real light, kind of pinkish pastel pillow mints off the front candy bowl. That was like probably like a cesspool of sickness. Those perfect. I wouldn't, but you couldn't pay me to buy those. Perfect place, perfect time, dissolve right in your mouth, and just what your palate needs after a nice meal. Same thing with Snickers, nice right? Meal. Perfect time and place. Post ride, post run, with a Coke. I mean, you can't beat it. I have, kind of. What's the bar I started to get for Dennis? The white wrapper.
Payday.
Yeah, Paydays have gently gone into that, like, option B, but only for post ride. You won't ever find me buying one of those for just myself on, like, a craving day. But so there's a perfect time and place for things like that. Butterfingers, Fifth Avenue, they are more of the wafer type, so you got to be, you don't lose.
More elegant experience.
That's right. As we've discussed before, you can't under wrap, as we've discussed many times on this podcast, especially with the Fifth Avenue. But yeah, it's there's just some trash candy out there that just shouldn't be dished out on Halloween. Just do everybody a favor. Having said that, the upside is that you get these as a parent and you're like, phew, good. I'm glad we got trash candy, because I am in no way, shape, or form tempted to have these junior mints. I'll pass. Or a whatchamacallit. Or a candy cane. Or a Hershey Kiss. Like, this don't do anything for me.
I'm a closet whatchamacallit guy.
Are you really?
Yeah, it's like a once every 3 months thing.
Man,
it's kind of like cream soda.
Gross. Disgusting.
I know, but like, it's just a couple times a year. There's something weird about my history that brings up a craving.
It happened to you back when you were 9, and this is all coming together.
Yeah, Mom always does the small candies at the house or at the cottage, and a lot of times she'll have Butterfingers and Kit Kats, which I still like. And but last time I was there, everything ran out except Baby Ruth. I can handle it, but it's not my go-to by any means.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where, and listen, I'm not
like an Almond Joy once in a while too.
I say I won't do that. I won't. I am. It's sometimes I'm a purist and will go straight for the Hershey's chocolate bar.
Oh yeah, that's like a air.
It is. That's an air.
It's like
It is. It's a classic. It's you can't go wrong with that. So yeah, and there's it's hard to beat those. But if I had my pick, I mean, can you imagine if Easter and Halloween were only a month apart, and you're getting Reese's eggs with no outside and Cadbury eggs for Halloween? I'd have diabetes for sure. I mean, it's like the perfect storm.
Okay.
we'll end it there. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Hope you're gearing up for Halloween. And now you can make all the right choices and be resilient by not picking all the easy ones.
Just eat one more.
Site. That's right.
See how it goes.
Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching for 2024, click on the coach tab and find the coach that's right for you. If you need anything from Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right. That'll wrap it up. That'll wrap up Candy Talk.
That'll wrap it up. Don't underwrap, overwrap this podcast. See you later.
All right, buddy. See you.